In 1983, a miniseries premiered and created a global sensation, a cultural phenomenon that redefined romance and tragedy on the small screen. That show was called The Thorn Birds. With its story of a decades-long forbidden love between the young Maggie Cleary and the ambitious priest Ralph D. Bricassart set against the wild backdrop of the Australian outback. The work was not only a resounding commercial success, but also became an unforgettable part of an entire generation's memory. It is an epic of passion, sacrifice, and pain. But behind the classic characters, the burning passions and the heart-wrenching tragedies were actors with their own very separate fates, lives that were also full of unseen thorns. Nearly half a century has passed, and time has etched different marks on their lives. Some continued to shine brightly. Some found eternal love right on the set. And there were also those who had to stop their journey in tragedy, leaving their stories unfinished. Let us look back at the tumultuous journey of the cast that brought the soul to the Thorn Birds. Barbara Stanwyck as Mary Carson in The Thorn Birds. The character of Mary Carson was a memorable villain, the powerful matriarch of the Drogheda station, a woman whose wealth only deepened her loneliness and bitterness. With her cold eyes and an authoritative voice, she was the embodiment of jealousy and torment. The performance of Barbara Stanwyck, at the time already 76 years old, was a haunting portrayal of a woman willing to manipulate the fates of others just to hold onto a love that was never truly hers. She turned a character on the page into a fearsome force, making audiences both despise and, in a way, pity her. But the real life of Barbara Stanwyck was as dark and thorny as any of her classic roles. Born Ruby, Catherine Stevens' tragedy struck when she was only 4 years old. Her mother was killed in a horrific streetcar accident. Not long after, her father abandoned the family, leaving little Ruby separated from her brother and forced to drift between foster homes. A childhood of poverty, loneliness, and a lack of love created a shell around her soul that no one could ever break. Tragedy continued when at 15 she had a desperate abortion, leaving a permanent scar and making her unable to bear children. This secret seemed to reflect her later coldness toward her only adopted son. In 1928, she married the comedian Frank Fay, a fading stage star. While her own fame soared in Hollywood, Fay's jealousy turned into drunken rages, beatings, and humiliation. After 7 years of hell, the marriage ended. Her second love affair with the star Robert Taylor, though lasting more than a decade, also failed to bring complete happiness. It was the bond of two lonely souls, and after their divorce, she never remarried, always confiding to friends that he was the greatest love of her life. Despite a legendary, the most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and her life. It seems the role of Mary Carson strangely mirrored her life while screen. Mary was a wealthy but lonely woman who craved love, but never found it in real life. Barbara Stanwyck also spent a lifetime searching for love, in vain. From a loveless childhood to broken marriages, the toughness and cold exterior of Mary seemed to be the very armor that life had forced Barbara to create. However, that tumultuous journey had to come to an abrupt end. On January 20th, 1990, Barbara Stanwyck passed away at the age of 82 from congestive heart failure and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Her passing left a great void. The legacy she left behind is not just her roles, but a thought-provoking life story of a woman who rose from the ashes of tragedy to become a legend. Richard Chamberlain as Father Ralph de Bricassart. In The Thorn Birds, the character of Father Ralph de Bricassart was the soul of torment, a handsome, influential priest trapped between his worldly love for Maggie and his ambition for power within the church. With his haunting blue eyes and a deadly charm, Father Ralph left an indelible impression of a great romantic tragedy. Richard Chamberlain's performance at the time, at age 48, brilliantly portrayed a man tortured by his own choices, a man who loved but could not love. But behind the image of the noble priest was an even greater internal struggle that Richard Chamberlain kept hidden for decades, since the 1960s when he became a phenomenon as Dr. Kildare. He had lived a double life. To the public, he was a heartthrob, an icon adored by millions of women. But in his private life, he was a gay man forced to love in the shadows and live in constant fear. The pressure of hiding his true self led him to depression, insomnia, and isolation, even at the height of his career. When he took on the role of Father Ralph, a character who also could not be true to his love, Chamberlain was also going through a personal crisis in his relationship with his partner, Martin Rabbit, with whom he had been secretly together. Since 1977, it wasn't until 2003, at the age of 69, that he dared to publicly come out in his memoir, Shattered Love. However, this liberation also brought new pain. He lost the support of some fans, and his relationship with his partner also began to fray, leading to their separation in 2011. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and his life. It seems the role of Father Ralph strangely mirrored his life, while on screen the character could not openly declare his love because of his vows to God in real life. Richard Chamberlain had to hide his love for half a century because of society's prejudices. The torment of Father Ralph on screen was the torment of Richard Chamberlain in real life. However, that tumultuous journey had to come to an abrupt end. On March 29, 2025, Richard Chamberlain passed away at his home in Hawaii just 2 days before his 91st birthday from complications following a stroke. His passing left a great void. The legacy he left behind is not just his roles, but a thought-provoking life story of a man who paid a very high price for fame and who finally found peace in being true to himself. Rachel Ward as Meggie Cleary. In The Thorn Birds, the character of Meggie Cleary was the heart of the story, the single rose in the Drogheda desert. From an innocent girl to a woman tormented by a forbidden love, Meggie was the embodiment of passion and pain. The performance of Rachel Ward, then only 26 years old, authentically portrayed the character's beauty and vulnerability, making her an international star. But perhaps the most important thing that happened to Rachel Ward was not fame, but love. It was on that fateful set that she met Brian Brown, the actor, who played her abusive husband, Luke Waneel. A romance blossomed, and they married just a year after the series aired. After the resounding success of The Thorn Birds, Rachel Ward found herself thrust into a spotlight she never wanted. Hollywood labeled her a beautiful muse, which she felt stifled her creativity. She felt insecure and decided to take a step back, choosing a more difficult path, becoming a director. Her 2009 film Beautiful Kate explored complex themes and was praised by critics, revealing a new talent and independent artistic voice. She chose family and creativity over the glamour of stardom. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and her life. It seems the role of Meggie Cleary was a complete opposite of her fate. While on screen, Meggie endured a life of romantic tragedy with an abusive husband and a lover she could never have in real life. Rachel Ward found a lasting and happy love of over 4 decades with the very man who played her on-screen husband. Where Meggie found pain, Rachel found eternal happiness. Today, at the age of 68, Rachel Ward is still living a quiet life in Australia with her husband, Brian Brown. She continues to work in the film industry as a director and screenwriter. Her journey is a testament to relentless effort, though, to redefine success on her own terms, and she continues to inspire the next generation. Brian Brown as Luke O'Neill in The Thorn Birds. The character of Luke Waneel was a memorable villain. He was Meggie's first husband, a rough, selfish, and abusive sheep shearer who saw Meggie only as a means to an end. Brian Brown's performance at the time, at age 36, was an excellent portrayal of a rugged and somewhat dangerous Australian man. But the real Brian Brown was the complete opposite. He is one of Australia's most successful and beloved actors. After The Thorn Birds, his career continued to flourish with roles in major Hollywood films like Cocktail with Tom Cruise and Gorillas in the Mist, alongside Sigourney Weaver. He became a symbol of Australian masculinity on the international screen, but his greatest achievement in life, as he himself admits, was not his roles, but his happy and enduring marriage to Rachel Ward. The love that blossomed on a tragic film set became one of the most beautiful and lasting love stories in the entertainment industry. Together, they built a family, a career, and a quiet life in their native Australia, far from the noise of Hollywood. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and his life. It seems the role of Luke Waniel was a complete opposite of the real man while on screen. Luke was a terrible husband who brought pain to Meggie in real life. Brian Brown is a devoted husband who brought happiness to the very actress who played Meggie. The irony of cinema had brought one of the most beautiful couples together. Today, at the age of 78, Brian Brown continues his acting career with passion. He remains a familiar face on Australian and international screens. His journey is a testament to a successful career, an enduring love, and the ability to perfectly balance work and family life. Jean Simmons as Fiona Fee Cleary. In The Thorn Birds, the character of Fiona Cleary was the mother who suffered in silence, an aristocratic woman who had to bury her past and her dreams to follow her husband to the harsh lands of Australia. With her sad eyes and a quiet resignation, she was the embodiment of family tragedy. Jean Simmons' performance at the time, at age 54, was a haunting portrayal of a woman carrying wounds that never healed. And it seemed this role revealed the very wounds that Jean Simmons herself had hidden for so many years. Famous from a very young age in England, she was nominated for an Oscar at just 21. But as her fame grew, her private life became more obscure. Her first marriage to actor Stuart Granger was 8, suffocating years under his control and jealousy. Her second marriage to director Richard Brooks, though it brought her memorable roles, could not heal the old wounds. She quietly turned to alcohol, not as an addict but as a tired woman seeking refuge. The once bright eyes on screen were now clouded with silent scars. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and her life. It seems the role of Fiona Cleary strangely mirrored her life while on screen. Fiona was a woman who had to endure family tragedies in silence. In real life, Jean Simmons also had to go through unhappy marriages and unspoken pain, things that were etched into her sorrowful beauty. However, that tumultuous journey had to come to an abrupt end. On January 22, 2010, just 9 days before her 81st birthday, Jean Simmons passed away. After a battle with lung cancer, her passing left a great void. The legacy she left behind is not just her roles, but a thought-provoking life story of a fragile beauty who had to face too many storms. Piper Laurie as Anne Muller. In The Thorn Birds, the character of Anne Muller was Meggie's confidant, a strong woman who ran her own station but also hid her own heartaches. Piper Laurie's performance at the time, at age 51, was an excellent portrayal of a steadfast woman. The life of Piper Laurie was a journey in search of authenticity. Typecast by the studio as an ingenue, she bravely left Hollywood to seek roles with depth on the stage. She succeeded, receiving 3 Oscar nominations for complex and edgy roles like the fanatical mother in Carrie. However, she never truly felt she belonged in Hollywood. Her marriage ended, and she faced depression. She found peace in sculpture and lived an independent life as strong as the characters she often played. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and her life. It seems the role of Anne Muller reflected her own resilience. While on screen, the character was a woman who had to handle everything on her own in real life. Piper Laurie also lived an independent life, overcoming breakdowns and pain to find peace in her art. However, that resilient journey had to come to an end. On October 14, 2023, Piper Laurie passed away at the age of 91. Her passing left a great void. The legacy she left behind is a vast body of work and a life story of tireless dedication to her art. Christopher Plummer as Archbishop Vittorio di Contini Verchese. In The Thorn Birds, the character of Archbishop Vittorio was Father Ralph's mentor and advisor, a symbol of power and wisdom. Within the church, Christopher Plummer's performance at the time, at age 53, brought a sense of authority and depth to the role. Born into an aristocratic family but growing up without a father, Christopher Plummer carried a quiet loneliness throughout his life. His career was full of success, but also dissatisfaction. His role as Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music brought him global fame, but also made him despise that glamorous image. He returned to the stage where he truly belonged. His life also went through personal breakdowns, with a first marriage that ended and a regret over his distant relationship with his daughter. However, late in his career, he had a spectacular comeback, winning an Oscar at the age of 82, becoming the oldest person to ever win an acting Oscar. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and his life. It seems the role of Archbishop Vittorio reflected his own career. While on screen, the character held a high position in the church. A mentor in real life, Christopher Plummer was also a master of the art of acting, a man who had reached the pinnacle of his profession. However, that journey full of dignity and talent had to come to an abrupt end. On February 5, 2021, Christopher Plummer passed away at the age of 91 after a fall at his home. His passing left a great void. The legacy he left behind is not just his roles, but the life story of an artist who never compromised and was finally recognized in a deserving manner. Richard Kiley as Paddy Cleary. In The Thorn Birds, the character of Paddy Cleary was the quiet father, a hard-working Irishman who loved his family but didn't know how to show it. Richard Kiley's performance at the time, at age 61, was a moving portrayal of a father facing his family's tragedies. Unlike many other stars, Richard Kiley chose a different path, one less glamorous but more challenging: the Broadway stage. And the price he paid was silent sacrifice. His first marriage ended in divorce after 6 children, a financial and emotional burden he rarely shared. Though he won 2 prestigious Tony Awards, especially for his role as Don Quixote in Man of La Mancha, behind the scenes he was still a lonely father. His warm, baritone voice became familiar to audiences through his narration of famous documentaries, including the unforgettable voice in Jurassic Park. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and his life. It seems the role of Paddy Cleary reflected his own loneliness and burdens. While on screen, Paddy was a father, carrying the heavy responsibility of a large family in a harsh environment in real life. Richard Kiley also had to bear the responsibility of a father of 6 after a broken marriage. However, that journey of quiet dedication had to come to an end. In his final years, he battled a rare bone marrow disease. On March 5, 1999, Richard Kiley passed away at the age of 76. His passing left a great void. The legacy he left behind is not just his roles, but a voice that has become immortal, and the life story of a man with a strong soul. Philip Anglem as Dane O'Neill. In The Thorn Birds, the character of Dane O'Neill was Maggie's beloved son, the result of her forbidden love with Father Ralph. He was the embodiment of innocence, faith, and the story's final tragedy. Philip Anglem's performance at the time, at age 30, was an excellent portrayal of a young man with a pure soul who chose God's path without knowing the secret of his origins. Before this tragic role, Philip Anglem was already a Broadway star. He had received a Tony nomination for his breakthrough performance in the play The Elephant Man, a role that required a phenomenal transformation. After the success of The Thorn Birds, he continued his acting career on television, notably with a role in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. However, he later gradually withdrew from the spotlight. He chose a different, quieter path, running a horse farm and dedicating himself to environmental causes. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and his life. It seems the role of Dane O'Neill, a person with a pure soul and a deep faith, reflected his later life choices. While on screen, Dane found peace in his faith. In real life, Philip Anglem found his peace in nature, far from the noise and complexity of Hollywood. Today, at the age of 72, Philip Anglem is living a quiet life. His journey is a testament to the fact that one can choose a different path, a more meaningful life after the glamour, and still continue to inspire in a very unique way. Mare Winningham as Justine O'Neill. In The Thorn Birds, the character of Justine O'Neill was Maggie's rebellious daughter. a young actress trying to escape her family's shadow and find her own way. Mare Winningham's performance at the time, at age 24, was a vivid portrayal of a new generation full of ambition and conflict. After this role, Mare Winningham's career blossomed, making her one of the most respected and versatile character actresses of her generation. She did not pursue the path of a glamorous movie star, but chose roles with depth, earning her an Oscar nomination and multiple Emmy Awards. She is not only a talented actress, but also a singer-songwriter who has released several albums. In her personal life, she has lived a rather private life as a mother of 5. She faced a terrible tragedy when one of her sons passed away. She later found love and married her longtime friend and fellow actor Anthony Edwards. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and her life. It seems the role of Justine O'Neill was a foreshadowing of her own artistic path. While on screen, Justine was an actress searching for her voice in real life. Mare Winningham truly found hers, becoming a multi-talented artist, recognized for her talent, not her fame. Today, at the age of 66, Mare Winningham continues her acting career with passion on both stage and screen. Her journey is a testament to relentless effort, a life dedicated to art and the ability to find peace and love after tragedy.